Well, it's been a very long time since I've done a cockpit update video. If you watched my last video, then you know I was planning to take it apart and redo a lot of stuff, and as you can see I've been quite busy over the last 3 or 4 days. I've put in some very long days and this is where I'm at now. Things have changed quite a lot, as you can see, so let's go through it and let me show you what has changed. The first thing obviously is the enclosure, or the start of the enclosure at least, and the roof that I've built. Let me show you how that works. I have installed these vertical beams here, secured to the side of the glare shield and captain's stand. Up we go, along we go, and down to the floor, where it's not secured down here, which means that rear support can wobble. It's not ideal, but with the panels in place and these cross beams in place, it's actually, yeah, reasonably sturdy. It's not brilliant. If I fell against it, it would smash to pieces, and I do keep tripping over the damn thing, but it's reasonably secure and solid for my purposes for now. We might change that later. I've mounted the speakers into the roof, as you can see. I had a very brief test run last night, while I was connecting some of the switches and configuring them, and the sound coming from overhead is pretty damn good. I have to say, it's a very nice effect. Works well. Got to draw your attention to this. It's not flush. This is extremely annoying, and it's a small problem that's linked to the overhead and the way I've mounted it. So let me show you that. What I wanted to have was an overhead that I could easily, well, relatively easily remove. And what I did was, you can see these bolts here. There's 4 of them, and they are put through this lower spar or beam and countersunk, and then this beam is screwed onto this beam, and that beam is screwed through the roof. So there's a lot of screwing around going on. Since the top of the roof we won't be looking at, I didn't really care if the screws stood proud, and they do. And naturally, one of the screws comes out here, directly below the cross beam. I'll tell you something, building cockpits is about finding a set of problems you didn't know you had as you try to solve problems that you know you have. And the amount of things that just don't work out or seem perfectly straightforward before you start cutting a piece of timber and then suddenly turn into a crock of shit as you go along is unbelievable. And that's a good case in point. So that should be sitting flush, and it isn't. And in order to fix that problem, I'm going to have to take down the overhead, take down this panel, take down the cross beam up here and drill a hole in it to accommodate the screw, which is a complete pain in the arse, and it's pouring with rain today, so I'm not going to do that. But that's the theory. There are 2 panels. This one is about 600 mils and this one is another 300 mils. That's far enough back so that it's the rear of the panel is not in my peripheral vision when I'm in a pilot seat. So it's enough. It doesn't need to come back any further. If you look at it from down here, you can just about see the speakers there. Sorry, the lighting's not great. I will probably cover the backs of the speakers with paper or something black in colour so that you can't see that light bleeding through there, and that will work. The overhead is the original overhead I was using, that you've seen in other videos. I've cut it down though. I removed the 2 auxiliary panels to the left and right where the FS packs and the miscellaneous panels were. I've kept it at the same length. I think I will hopefully use that area for other aircraft. I'm hoping to get into the level D 767 and maybe the PMDG 747, so I can add to that, but I've just held on to the sort of generics. So I've got my lights, APU, anti-ice, doors, no smoking, that sort of stuff, basics. And that attaches fairly well with the 4 bolts. It's a bit of a pig because naturally the bolts are not they're not perpendicular, they're not straight, so there's a bit of wiggling to get it into place, but it goes in, and once it's up there it's quite secure, so pretty happy. I've put it slightly off centre, so it's not directly over my head, it's sort of over the centre of the cockpit as it is now, and I'm happier with that. The old comm panel I've moved over to my left side, It's exactly the same panel you've seen in other videos. I'll just show you how it's wired in at the back. Right, what I did was there's a BU0836 card obviously on the other side of this panel, and just to make it easy, the reason why all of these are labelled is when I put this in originally, it was on the bottom of the pedestal. It was quite difficult to get access to the card at the same time. So what I did was I wired in all of the wires and then threw them through a hole in the timber, and with the aid of these labels I knew exactly which wires were pairs or triples with the ground for the encoders. So saw no reason to take those off, and it was a little trick that worked out quite well and just made reconnecting everything much more simpler, instead of having to do one wire and then one wire and keep going over and back and over and back, which is very time consuming and irritating to say the least. So that's my old comm panel, all configured and working, quite happy with it. Up here, redesigned the glare shield a little bit, held on to the old panels where I can recycle. We'll need to fill in those holes and that sort of thing. Kept the same EFIS panel, it's exactly the same. A lot of it's not connected yet because a lot of it won't work in non-paper aircraft. Now I did rebuild the MCP, flight control unit, autopilot unit, call it what you will. It's more Boeing really than anything else. I'm still waiting for labels. I purchased some clear labels from my label maker. And 2 days later they still haven't arrived after being shipped, so I don't know what method the vendor is using, but I'm slightly annoyed about that. And that's all connected up, and as much of it as can work is working, so I need to bolt that in place. Down here, this panel would have been the status panel for the Airbus. That's what it was originally intended to be, and I never got that far. So I've put some markings on it in paint, and the top section will be the FS PAX controls for serving meals, playing music, and so on, and the Mayday there. And the lower one will be the what were the miscellaneous switches on the overhead. So labels on, off, mute, top down view, initiate pushback, things like that. Okay. Same old throttles, same old engine panel. I'm thinking about rebuilding that because I think I can do a tidier job, particularly of the guards around the switches, which I quite like, but I think I can do that a little bit better. Okay, as you can see where the monitors are, I've removed the cutouts so I can see the entirety of the monitor. It gives me a lot more screen area and a lot more a screen to play with in setting out my instruments and that sort of thing, and my gauges. Looking through from approximately where the pilot would sit, it's about here. I think I will lower the roof. I can quite easily lower it just by dropping those two beams down a few inches and drilling a fresh hole for the bolts. It all hinges, so it's very straightforward to do that. I think in the real Airbus, the gap between the top of the glare shield and the bottom of the windscreen is only 30 centimeters. This one's running at about 40, but what I want to achieve eventually is to have it so that when you're looking out, you can see the top and the bottom edges of the monitors. There will be more monitors coming. Please don't put on comments about the monitor, the crappy little monitor. I've heard it all so many times before. But there will be a triple head to go. There will be 3 monitors someday. And ideally I'd like them to be big enough so that you can see the edges of the monitors, the top and bottom edge, which I think will make it quite a bit more immersive when you can see that view. Okay, I'm just going to bring you around the side, hopefully without tripping over and dropping the camera. This is how it looks where the beams have been secured on this side, and they're bolted straight onto the side of the monitor stand there, as you can see. Because I've gotten rid of 2 monitors, I've been able to tidy up the cables at the rear. I thought I'd show you how that looks. Maybe it looks horrific, but believe me, it's a lot better than it was. I've been able to take out 2 power cables, 2 VGA cables, and the Y connectors that were running from the graphics card, excuse me, out to the splitters, and to to create those two different views. Quite a lot of USBs down here, obviously. I'm sorry, the lighting is probably quite crap. All the white bits you can see are labels. Label everything, folks. If you are doing this sort of project, label every damn cable, ideally at both ends, so you know what's what. I mean, I've even got labels on the sockets and the plugs, so I know where everything goes, and I know what I'm unplugging when I go to unplug something. Down here, it's just the rear of the monitor stands. I don't think you've ever seen this before. That little box is the splitter for my sound, so I get separate sounds in my headset to the speakers for the engine and environment noises. Back of the gear lever, that's not been reconnected yet, and over there, that's one of the BU cards for the comm panel that you've just seen. On top, that's the BU card, which primarily runs the mode control panel and as much of the EFIS as I've plugged in. That card is full, so I can't connect anything more to that, but I do have a spare one. And on top here, you can see a little cutout. It seemed like a good idea at the time to put a cutout there so that I could get access to the overhead from the opposite side and plug in the excuse me, to plug in the BU card. But in practice, it's quite useless. I can't get at it very easily from outside, from over here. It's difficult to reach. I mean, I can just about reach it, but in terms of actually connecting a wire or you know, connecting a new switch, it's just not going to happen. There's no way. So probably unnecessary, but maybe it might be useful at some point in the future. What else can I show you? USB lead running up to the card. I did at one stage, just as an experiment, pop in a little piece of timber. Again, a little inspiration from Sim Samurai, just a crossbar, if you like, running up the center here. Let me zoom that out a bit. From here up to here, which would basically be the center of the windshield. Jeff from Sim Samurai does that in his cockpit, so just attached with a little piece of Velcro. And it adds something, and it does look good. I've taken it out for the moment, but for example, the USB lead would run up the back of that, so that you can't see it. And probably when I get the triple head in place, I will put that back in, because it does look good. So that's where I'm at. 3 or 4 days of very, very hard work, long days to get to where I am now. I think it's come off fairly well. I've been able to reconfigure most of the switches and that sort of thing, so I just need... Oh yeah, forgot to talk to you about this. I've added this to the back of the side stick for two reasons. First is to add a little bit of depth, so again it runs back behind me in my peripheral vision, but more importantly, le voila, the charts fit in there, so I can pop in my charts and have whatever I need during my flight available. It's one thing that is an issue in this cockpit, and probably in all cockpits, is storage space for documentation and paperwork is quite tight. So that works out nicely, and that's why I've put that in. So where do I go from here? I mean, a few days ago I was talking about making it smaller, and now suddenly, with the addition of the enclosure, the bloody thing is even bigger than it was before. I'm thinking about turning it 90 degrees and moving it into the corner over there where my big blue poster is. That might give me a little bit more space. And I can see where I'm going to go next. A couple of extra computers, a bit of wide view software, and I could quite easily add in the side view panels and monitors, which would go, you know, right here. Have a stand or some sort of a support here, blanking out the view of the living room and all the shambles that you can see in the background of this video, and putting in the monitors for left and right views. I've seen this in other cockpits, and it is amazing the depth that adds to that. It's basically putting in windows into the world, so you can look out your left window and you see the edge of the runway, and you see the hangar building and the gate and that sort of thing. It's fantastic, and it's quite easy to do. As always with this project in my house, it just comes down to space. But that's where we're at. Please drop me any comments. I will delete the haters, I always do, so don't bother trolling on my website. Negative comments or constructive feedback is always welcome, but the haters just get deleted and blocked, so don't bother. Feel free to drop by the website, www.shamrock075.webs.com. There's lots of information there, and the forum, you're welcome to join, post questions, post comments, and I will respond to them as quickly as I can. As always, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye bye.